Hello, my name's Phil Geraghty and welcome to Crowdfunding for Community Pubs with Crowdfunder and the Plunkett Foundation. So we wanted to put on this webinar today to speak to a range of you about your projects, about what you're doing. I've had lots of really good questions in and hopefully we can answer a lot of those today. And we're going to be going through lots of examples of different pubs and how they've raised funds from the crowd to get themselves going. And we'll give you a look at kind of what's happening on the front of the project, what you can see, what you may have seen on other crowdfunding projects, and have a good view of all of those. But we'll also have an important look at what happens behind the scenes. So those things that happen that maybe are not so visible from the front end of a project. So you can get a real grasp on what it really takes to raise funds from the crowd. We've got some slides coming up, but I thought it was quite nice to have a bit of video at the front so you get to see me and see what we're doing. Feel free to ask questions. I can read the questions down here as they're coming in, and I've got a range of questions from you there. One of the things I will say from all your feedback, and I've had a huge amount of feedback in the run-up to this, is that you all have very, very similar issues, and you're all at very similar points, which is really good. You're all having conversations with developers who may be owning the pubs, maybe looking to turn them into houses. So that's an interesting commonality. Lots of you have gone down the route of classifying it as an asset of community value, which is really good. Lots of you are dealing with local councils around planning and compulsory purchase orders, which is really good. Lots of you are in the midst of trying to negotiate the price, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And a lot of you have gone through the process of forming a community benefit society in order to do a share issue. What I would say is, if you want any more information on any of those, there's a huge amount of resource on the Plunkett Foundation website. You can go there and have a look in the More Than a Pub section, and you can see lots of advice and guidance on that, and the guys at the Plunkett Foundation give you a lot of guidance on that. The thing we really want to talk about today is, once you've done all those things, how do you actually raise money from the crowd? How does that work? How have other people done it? That's the bit where we specialize. So we work with, we've worked with tens of thousands of organizations across the country. We've now funded 26,000 organizations. We've raised £65 million for them. And about 70 of those projects are for community share issues. There's not a huge number of them in the UK every year, but when they're very important to communities all over the UK, and we love working. And I'll show you a few examples of how they've been used in other scenarios, as well as pubs, so you can look at a wider spectrum and try to understand how people have done this and how they've raised the funds that's important to them. So without further ado, I'm going to bump into the slides now, and we can start walking through exactly how this all works. So hopefully now you can see a little bit of pictures there. So the crowdfunding universe is quite a wide spectrum of things. If you see crowdfunding on social media or in the press, there'll be lots of different examples of crowdfunding that are used in different situations. So from left to right, what you can really see there, that we've got donations crowdfunding, rewards crowdfunding, community shares, which we're going to talk about a lot today, but also lending and equity as well. In terms of how those pan out, there's various platforms that focus on different sectors. The bit that we really focus on as an organization is donation crowdfunding, rewards crowdfunding, and community shares. The reason for that is because they are the ones that are really impacting communities. They're about people coming together to make great ideas happen. And that's why we're really focused on that. We're going to talk a lot about community shares crowdfunding today, but also rewards. Now, rewards crowdfunding is essentially where somebody puts some money into a project and they get something tangible back in return. So the sort of thing we have seen pubs and guest houses doing is things like, if you put some money into this project, once it's up live and running, you can come and stay here. And that is your reward. So you put £100 in, you'll get a room back later to come and stay in. We've also seen people do actual beer. So, you put money into the project, you actually get a certain amount of beer back. Once we're up and running, you get to hire the hall. You get to do various things. So rewards crowdfunding, which is the bulk of what crowdfunders do, is a great tool for engaging people and getting them to really understand what your offering is going to be once you're up and running afterwards. Donation crowdfunding is used for those pure charitable donation projects. It's not really something we want to be talking about today, but it is something that's interesting to smaller charities. And like we said, lending and equity is not really what we're talking about today. Those are for limited companies. They're not really applicable for co-ops in the same way. So a little bit about Crowdfunder and our background. So we've been going for a total of 6 years now. We've raised £65 million, and that's across about 25,000 different organisations. We get hundreds of projects a day coming into us. This is something that always surprises people. We get hundreds of projects coming in a day from all over the country, from all sorts of different things. And you'll see, if you go to the site, you'll see a wide range of things that people are crowdfunding for. We are personally very, very passionate about community business and community-owned businesses. We love working with cooperatives. And we've raised £12 million now for community share issues over the last 3 or 4 years. And we'll see a few examples of the different ones we're working with coming up. So just give you some different uses for community share crowdfunding. You can launch community shops. We're seeing more and more community shops using crowdfunding. This is the Pencuick Storehouse, who raised £91,000 from 133 investors. We also did our first outdoor swimming pool, Jubilee Pool, last summer. They've raised a total of £530,000 from almost 1,400 investors. Fantastic project that galvanised the local community, but also reached to a much wider audience and wider Cornish diaspora. And then, in terms of the scale of some of these, the Glenwithis distillery in Scotland is the largest community share offer we've done. Their current share issue is just tipped over £1 million now. These slides get out of date very quickly. But in total, they've raised £3 million through the platform. So a lot of people always ask us, kind of, what is the largest crowdfund you've done? How big can this go? And John, the guys in Glenwithis, have kind of shown that actually, yes, you can raise significant funds for significant projects. And that was about involving local people in the distillery, bringing back kind of independent distilling into Dingwall in Scotland, but also they attracted a large amount of investment from further afield and from abroad. And over 3,000 investors now. One of the really cool things they did was when they were building the distillery, they had a webcam on the distillery so you could go on there and watch it at any time. I think that just shows some of the ways that community businesses are different in the way they think than traditional businesses. I can't think of many traditional businesses that would put a camera onto a building site as part of their project, but it really went down well with the investors. Give you another one that was recently funded. This is the first skate park that we funded through community shares. In the end, they raised over £100,000. Lots of local individuals putting into that project, also lots of local business owners putting into that project. And that's allowed them to expand the skate park even further, work with more kids in inner city Manchester, and get that project going. But then, in terms of what we want to talk about today, we really want to talk about the pubs. And I've got 4 pub examples here that we've worked with that I wanted to have a kind of more detailed look at, so you can understand how they've actually put these projects together and how they've promoted them. And for this, I'm just going to skip over to my browser so we can see the projects fully. Hopefully you can see that there now. So this is the puzzle in Sobury Bridge. And these guys, if you get a chance, watch the video. It's a fantastic video that talks about all the different elements of the pubs. And I think that's something, again, that came through in a lot of your questions and a lot of your description of your statuses about how else can you use the pub? How can this be more than just a pub? How can we actually start to reach out to other parts of the community and potentially put things like post offices in the pub, put libraries in the pub? It's really interesting how different communities have taken this approach differently and started incorporating different things. I think I had an email in from Jenny who said she was looking at doing yoga in the pub, doing some smoothies, herbal stuff, tonics, a whole range of different things that are going to be going on there, crafting groups, meetings, workshops. They've really thought about all the different things that could go on in the pub and how it's going to appeal to different people. So if we just look at the brief construct of a page here, this is a typical crowdfunding page. You'll have a title here at the top, you'll have a video, and you have a little brief description here. One thing that's really worth mentioning is that a lot of people will view this on mobile phone. So although I'm showing this all on desktop, it's worth always looking at your project on mobile phone and understanding what people see. they will literally see that title, the video, and that bit of text on the top right-hand side. 60% of people will view the project on mobile phone first. They may come back via desktop to kind of explore it more. There'll be some social media sharing buttons on here, and we'll talk a bit about the social media aspects of these projects a bit later. And as you start getting into the project, this text here is some of the really important stuff that people are going to start reading through to understand your project. It's really important that you craft this and that you get all of your passion and all of your dedication to what you're doing kind of into the text, and give it a little bit of personality. I want to know who you are, the journey you've gone through, what you're looking to do, and why this is so important to the community. We're going to look at how we construct that text a little bit later. But give you an example, they've put images in here of the pub, they've put pictures of it. You'll see that photos in other projects that we look at. And these are the various investment levels that people can come in and get involved with the pub. So quite often there'll be a minimum investment level that people are getting involved with. The minimum on this one was £300. Quite often it's 250 or 300. And people can choose which level they want to come in, click this and go through and pay money through to the site. So it's very easy. They can do it from their mobile phone. They can do it from their desktop computer. Just give you another example here, the Gardener's Rest. Again, an amazing video that they've produced on this one. There is £237,000 from 382 backers. And if you look at this, there's the tabs across here are quite important. So you have an updates tab where you can keep people updated on what's going on the project. So the sort of things you'll have here is, oh, we've just been in the press. The TV have just come down and made a nice video about us. Oh, we've just bought the pub and it's all going through. You'll see a lot of those updates on projects like that. It allows people to comment on the project as well. This is really nice because it gives that human element to what other people feel about it and why it's important to them. And you can see the list of investors in the pub as well. So one of the things that people often ask me is like, oh, couldn't we just put up a PayPal page or something and start collecting payments? Why is this different? That social proof element of crowdfunding, which we've worked on quite extensively, allows everybody to see who else is involved and why else people want to get involved. And that's really crucial for kind of drawing more people in and giving them the confidence that this is a real thing. One of the questions I had in from Jenny was kind of how do we show that this is really a viable thing, that we're going to be able to buy the pub? And I think crowdfunding does that to a large extent. It shows people that other people are involved and that other people can come along and get involved. And this isn't just somebody's crazy idea sitting in a shed by themselves. This is a community effort where we're going to come together and make this happen. I'll just show you some of the further bits on the page. You will notice on all these projects there's a link to the community share offer document and the business plan as well. So if you're working on a business plan with your advisor, this becomes a really important part of the crowdfund. People can download this and understand it. Part of the art of the crowdfund is to pull some really key bits out of those documents and use them to market ourselves. What are the things out of that document that we can really kind of pull to the top and push out there and get other people engaged with? So that's the Gardener's Rest in Sheffield. And then the Crawford Arms, wonderful project in Maidenhead. Again, you'll see the updates, the comments, the investors. You'll see the text. There's a lovely picture here of people in the pub having a great time. And I think that's what a lot of these projects are about, is this is a community meeting space. This is where people come together. So you really want to show that through the project. Again, more photos of the people. And then again, you'll see the links to the further information in the documents. The Northumberland Arms Community Society Limited, the fund, if you follow it on social media. I have not been to the fund, but I've looked at their social media, and I'll tell you the pictures of their food are amazing. I really want to go. I really want to check it out because it looks absolutely lovely. And they did a great job of kind of engaging with the community. I've got a few examples later of kind of how they've done that on social media and what they've done. And you'll see in a lot of these projects, they'll break it down into these beautiful sections, the kind of headline, make it easier for users. Why are we doing this? That's an important part of the project. Why should you invest? Another crucial question that people are going to have. How much will it cost to do this? People are going to want to know that you've actually thought through the numbers. I can see through the emails you've all sent me that you're all thinking about the numbers. You know the costs involved in this. You know sometimes the difference between what you've got and what you're going to need, the cost of renovating it, cost of getting it going. I think you can expose a lot of that to people and let them see that, because it shows that you're actually really thinking about these things and it's a sound investment. What do we plan to do? What are you actually investing in? What is a community benefit society? That normally takes a bit of explaining to people about why this is different than maybe an ordinary limited company, why it is a cooperative. It is a one member, one vote system, but also the way they can get financial returns also is different than maybe other investments they've done. So it's worth explaining all of that. And going through that in more detail there, you can see pictures of the outside. Quite often in these projects, you'll see quotes from other people as well. So where people have said, you want as many quotes from people who say, I think this is a crucial part of the local community. That's why I've invested. That kind of, again, that social proof really helps to pull the project together. Some lovely historical photos there as well. This one's one of my favorite because it goes on. If people want to read through all of that, they can, and that's really important. Quite often the video will be a kind of, a minute, 2 minute snapshot of the top level. But if I want the real detail, I can go into that through the project page itself there. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a overview of some of the projects that we've worked with and kind of how they're constructed. And what you tend to find is when you look at those projects from the outside, you go, great, they've raised £300,000 from the crowd. Surely they just had a really nice idea and they just stuck the web page up and it just magically got funded all by itself. That does happen on very rare occasions, I'll be honest with you, that does happen. In most cases, it doesn't. It takes work, it takes hard work to actually pull the project together, to figure out how you're going to contact everybody, to make a video, to look at the skill set of your team and look at who's doing what, and importantly, promote your project to the local community and get people involved. It takes time, it takes effort, and that's worth knowing and understanding. But given, the other thing I'll say is, given the amount of time and effort you guys have put into the other areas of this project, a lot of it, which will be very valuable for the crowdfunding itself, I think it shows that this is a important task and it needs that dedication and devotion. What I would say about how it actually works in real terms is, I've kind of break it down into 3 stages, which is you need to plan this thing. The more planning you do up front, the easier your crowdfund will go. I see that time and time again with projects where they've put the planning in, they've put their effort in up front, and then the crowdfunding flies. The alternative is that you just stick a project live and expect it to fund all by itself, and it doesn't. And then you're wondering why and having to run around and try and figure out how you get it funded. So getting that planning up front is really important. In terms of the work, you need to put that project together. You need to make a video. You need to start speaking to people. I can see through all of the project emails I got back that you're actually already starting to speak to the local community and get the message out there, which is really good. The earlier you can do that, the better, and get different people involved at different stages. The third bit of that is that you then actually launch your project. This is an intensive period where you're pushing your project. What we normally recommend is to try and do this in 28 days. If you've done enough planning up front, you can launch your project and fund it in 28 days. A few reasons for that. One is that crowdfunding projects tend to have a big spike at the beginning. They tend to have a big spike at the end. They tend to have a bit of a flat bit in the middle sometimes. And by extending the project, what you normally do is just extend that flat bit in the middle. It's really important to keep the momentum going throughout a crowdfunding project and get everybody on board. What I would say is do not go on holiday during your crowdfunding project. Again, I see that time and time again when people are like, well, I'm going to be away for 2 weeks in the middle. It takes that dedication to actually be there and be promoting it and pushing it as it's going and be available for any press and stuff that goes. And then, getting everybody in the team galvanized on this for 28 days. The other reason for doing it short is, I'd imagine a lot of you are already busy. You may have jobs, you may have children. By doing it for 28 days, it means you can focus on this for a short burst of activity, and then you can get back to doing what it is you're doing, and you can get on and open the pub, which is fantastic. Obviously, the money aspect of this is important. It allows you to buy the pub. It allows you to do the work on the pub that may need to be done. But I think the other aspect that's equally important is actually this is a validation exercise. You know, a lot of groups I work with are always asking the question of like, yes, I think this is a good idea, but does the wider community think this is a good idea? And the crowdfunding will tell you first and foremost whether people are willing to put their money into this, and for it to go forward. So it's a really good junction point between, we think this is a viable thing, is it? Let's get the validation from the community, and if they fund it, then hopefully they're going to use it. And that goes on to my second point, which is in terms of awareness. Now, often with a lot of you have sent me in messages that said your pub is currently closed, and this is a reopening of it. And I think that awareness part of it is often you'll have to raise funds in order to market yourself and promote yourself and say, this is now the new look pub, and this is why it's different than it was before. And that'd be an ongoing exercise. One of the great things that crowdfunding does is that flips it on its head, and you do the awareness whilst you're doing the crowdfunding campaign. It's a lovely way of letting everybody know what is the plan for the pub. You'll get to speak to the whole community about it. This is the plan for it. This is what we're going to do. You can invest here. You're not having to worry too much about actually promoting it afterwards. And I think that's one of the reasons why you'll see such an amazing statistics on why community-owned pubs are successful, is because in order for it to happen, the community had to get involved to do it. And so they've got that awareness, they've got that validation. You also end up with these amazing advocates for your pub. They are shareholders in the pub, they are customers of the pub. It's like having, I've had somebody describe it to me, it's like having 300 landlords all out there promoting the pub all the time. You get people using it for their family events, hiring out certain areas, bringing friends to the location, and getting everybody involved in it. So it actually, you build this network of advocates, which is totally amazing. So just going on to some of the, the real crux of how you put this together. If anyone says to me, how do I do a crowdfunding project? I always break it down into two distinct parts. So the first one is telling your story. How do you put together that page? How do you craft it in a way that engages people? And the second half of the challenge is, how do I actually reach people and convince them to actually put their money into this project? So just focusing on the first part of it there, your story, what I always look at is kind of how do you, what's the real top level information I need to get across? And there's three things which I think are vital for every project. And the first one is, what is it you actually want to achieve? Be quite descriptive of this, be quite straight. What is it you're trying to do? We want to reopen the pub. We want to reopen the hotel rooms. We want to turn it into a library and a post office as well. Give it in real kind of plain English. How are people going to get involved with this? The second bit is, why is this actually important to the community? I think that's really worth explaining to people the whole time. Is people will want to get involved with this from an emotional standpoint. So why is this important for me? This is the last community space in our community. It's a place for us to meet. It's something we can all be proud of. You want to kind of appeal to people's emotional side to say, actually, this is something you need to get involved with. Quite often they'll decide to get involved initially from an emotional standpoint, but then how much they give comes down to the business plan and how viable it all is. Excuse me. And then the third bit is, how will you use the funds raised? So I think an important element of this is, like we said, showing out that you've put the work into this, you've figured out how the funds are going to be raised, and that you've thought about all the different aspects that commercially matter to the business. This is an activity that's really worthwhile you doing yourselves. Is kind of mapping that out and writing a paragraph for each of these. When we do a physical workshop, we sit down and write out a paragraph for each of these. It's definitely worthwhile, all of you looking at that and figuring out what are your three things about what you can achieve, why this is important, and how you use the funds raised. In terms of constructing the video, a lot of people, especially with community share projects, have said to me, how important is the video? You'll see in those examples I showed you, some of them have a video and some of them don't. I would always suggest that you have a video. I think you will raise more funds. You can keep it quite short and sweet. People's attention spans are quite short these days. So, you know, in an online fashion, I'd say, you know, you want it at about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I think for the community share ones where you've got quite a lot to explain, you're probably at the 2-minute end of that. Get as many people in that video as possible, get as many faces in it as possible. I've had projects who have said to me about doing animated videos or just a series of pictures with a voiceover. I don't think that has the same effect as actually one of you as the faces of the project, as people, a face that people know locally, getting in front of camera and saying why this is really important to you. Write a script for the video. You know, once we've done the work here about what are the key points about what we're doing and what the key selling points of the project, you know, it's very easy then to say, actually, these are the things I want to mention in a video. Who's going to say what bits? And get a few people in front of camera to talk about why it's important to them and why they should go ahead. You know, the second bit of this, once we've looked at the project itself and kind of mapped out what those key things are, the second bit then is that how do we actually reach a crowd? You know, this is the life and death of every project. I've seen a number of projects that have the most amazing project page. They've really thought about it. They've really thought about their business plan. It happens a lot with community share issues where people think about their business plan a lot and they don't think enough about how they're actually going to reach people and engage with people. And so that's, you know, part of the reason we're doing this work is to really focus on some of the elements about how you actually promote the project and how you reach people. And what I'd say to all projects is build a marketing plan. I've got a template plan, which I'll show you at the end of this, which you can email me on phil@crowdfunder.co.uk and I'll send you a copy of it. And it's a great template for you to be able to understand what is a marketing plan, how does this fit together, how could we adapt this? I'd say you're always wanting to look to adapt it for your own local scenario, but it gives you a good starting point about, you know, what it is we're going to be doing each day of our 28-day campaign. So one of the first bits is looking at kind of who are the people, the types of people that are going to want to invest in this project. So if we look at one of those projects like the puzzle, what you would have, which is probably common to a lot of projects, is you'd have your previous regulars, people who are in the pub before, it's been closed, they're going to want to come back. How do we reach out to them? One of the other things that the puzzle had as well was local sports groups. There was either rugby teams or there was the cyclists that you'll see in the video that want to see it back open and want to get going with it. It was a music venue. So you've got this whole kind of music lover angle about how people within the local area who like music and the wider area who've gone there as a kind of bit of a musical mecca, how do they get engaged with this project? And then the fourth one I put there is, you know, speaking to bands that may have played there. It really helps with all crowdfunding projects if you've got some element of celebrity, some element of somebody famous, whether that's locally or wider afield, who's either been to the place, has some love for the place, and wants to see it open. It just adds another layer of excitement and credibility to it. And I put a question mark there for you guys to think about your own thing. What is it for your community that would be the other group? Is it a local mums group? Is it a local older person group, a youth group, a nursery that kind of wants to use the space? How do we reach that out? You know, I've limited it to 5 on here. You can keep going on this and looking at all the different interest groups that may want to get involved with the project and really have a vested interest in seeing it succeed. So this is the point that I mentioned earlier. You know, in terms of reaching the crowd, what you need to remember is that most of them are looking at it on a mobile phone, 60% of them, and they're probably doing like those people are doing there, walking around and doing something that they, doing something else. So, you know, I get this a lot where I'm looking at a project where I'm getting on and off of the bus, getting on and off the tube, putting the kids to bed, doing various other things. So the attention span of someone is quite short, that's what I'm saying. And actually, throughout a crowdfunding project, you're often having to communicate to people 5, 6, maybe even 10 times before they invest. It's quite often a case that they're not wanting to invest. So a lot of people say, well, I've emailed everybody and not enough people have invested. It was like, actually, you may need to contact them several times through several different channels. You may need to speak to some of them face to face. You may need to invite them to an event. There's layers of communication that go on through a successful crowdfunding campaign, which means that people will see it through different channels and they'll experience it in different ways and different triggers to remind them to do it. And you'll get a lot of people who will come in on the last day and go, oh yeah, I haven't had a chance to do it, but now I know it's really important, I will do it. And they may have questions. that's the other thing to think about, is these people may have questions. They may need to take them through it in a bit more detail, and that may allow them to give even more. So think of it in the back of your mind, be thinking, they're going to be seeing this on a mobile, their attention span is going to be short. How do I make this quite short and punchy? Some of the interesting thing around the stats, this is a classic example of a project where you can see what I mentioned earlier, which is, I get that graph on the top left is how much traffic they get to a project. So you can see that they had lots of traffic on the first few days. It then starts to kind of plateau off throughout the project, and then a lot of traffic at the end. It's quite nice if you plan it well enough, you can buck that trend and have things going on. You can see the little humps in there throughout that journey. It's nice to have little bits through that journey where they can people can get more involved on certain days where you're pushing something out, but expect that to be the general curve. And then you can also see on the top right there is an example of the stats that we give as well, where you can see actually how much pledging has come from various platforms. You can understand how much pledging is coming from Twitter or Facebook or from Crowdfunder itself, or from an email you sent out, from your own website, and that allows you to kind of tweak your own marketing as you go through the project. So the second thing I'd say is look at who is interested in your project and break down the different spheres of influence. So one of the tools I use for doing this is what we call our supporter canvas. Again, if you drop me an email at phil@crowdfunder.co.uk, I can send you a version of this. And this is a great tool for us looking at kind of what situation do we want to be at the start of our campaign. Often when I speak to projects and they say, we want to crowdfund, we want to raise £300,000, can we do it? I'll say, yes, but you're not ready yet. You need to go away, you need to think about your social media, you need to think about how you're going to reach people, you need to maybe get some larger donors, larger investors geared up first. Quite often they'll have to go away and work on that, and they can crowdfund, but they may be 6 months to a year away from it in some cases. With a lot of your projects, I can see you've been doing this for a while. There's also other things in place, so you potentially have that time, some of you, to figure that out. Some of you have got a bit of a ticking clock of this is up for sale now and we need the money now, where you may not have time, but a lot of you are already in a good position as well, where you have Facebook page, Twitter page, LinkedIn, Instagram. So that's good. So just going around the circle from number one in terms of like your own data, I think one of the first things to look at is, do I have some large donors that I know of? It may be some of you that are actually in the group already. It may be some other people in the community who've expressed an interest. The more you can gear that up beforehand to say, actually, I've got these people, I know we are 10, 20% funded before we start, that's a great place to be in. The second bit there is email. What I would say is start building that email list now. There's great tools out there like MailChimp where you can collate all those email lists. They give you a lovely little widget you can stick on your website for people to sign up for your newsletter. And I'd say that's probably the most important thing you could do, is have a website, have a sign up form, and say, if you're interested in investing, then sign up for this newsletter and we'll keep you posted on the journey. I think the more you can keep them involved in that journey between now and launch, the better. It's keep them warm, keep them engaged, get them working for you in whatever way you can, and they're more likely to be involved in that story. So when you come to go live, bang, they can start investing straight away. Your team is very important for this. I would expect each member of your team to be buying shares in this. You've put a large amount of work in this. It doesn't matter what level you're in at, but if you've got 5 members in the team, you should have 5 backers there on day one, straight in. And you guys are going to be the driving force for a lot of this. So you need to be prepared to get out there and do that, get it into your wider networks and get involved with people. If you look at social media, I'd say it's definitely worth setting up a Facebook and a Twitter account. It's potentially worth setting up an Instagram account, depending on the demographic of your local community. With the Facebook page, I've seen some of the stuff you've sent over. I've seen Facebook pages with around 900, 1,000 people on there. I've seen ones with 100 or 200 likes. If you can get it up kind of 300, 400 likes and above before launch, then that's great. Similar with Twitter. It's just a way of kind of collating together all of that social media activity that may be going on from supporters, resharing that stuff and getting people involved. If you're not that au fait with social media, it's really worth getting somebody in the local community who is, to get involved with the project and see if they can help you out in actually pulling all that stuff together and own that bit of it. It's often a great task for somebody to own that bit of the project. What I would say is I have seen it with LinkedIn, which is more of a business network. I have seen people pushing it out their own across their own business network to their connections that can work quite well. But that social media plan is really important. The third bit there is any kind of partnerships you may have, either on a national level or a local level. So to give you an example, on a national level, if you're working with Crowdfunder or the Plunkett Foundation, then we should be sharing out your project and pushing it out to people. You may also be working with other organizations, be that Camera or anyone else. It's like, actually, can they push out the project and share it? Locally, this becomes very important, which is who else within the local community has access to all of these people. So if you have anybody else who has an email list locally that sends out like an email newsletter, definitely make friends with them and get them to get promoting this out at that time. Any other organizations in the town or village that have access to people, I would definitely start getting them involved in the project and seeing if you can access people through those other partners. It may be the church, it may be the existing post office, it may be the schools. It's like, how do you make this relevant to all of them, so this is a benefit for all of them, so that they actually promote the message out. So I've seen that with posters put across the local community, where they're putting it in places where people are going to be, because those partners are keen to support. And suppliers is the other one. If you are being supplied by a brewery or by any other food stuff or anything else, they're going to get more custom from you because you're now up and running. Then they're a great organization to contact and get them to share and promote it. That share, when I talk about sharing and promoting, what I'm really saying there is, have they got, things I'd ask is, have they got an email that I can, an email that they regularly send out, a newsletter that I can be included in? If they have their own social media accounts, can we push a message out on there to say this is happening? And also then the physical side of the premises as well. Can I actually put a poster up in your foyer that explains what we're doing here? And then it goes out to kind of the wider unknowns. So the elements I put in there are kind of actually, can we get some press and media, the newspapers, the TV, the radio involved in this? Those organizations will usually want to get involved once you're a bit funded. What you don't want to be doing is going out when you're on £0 and saying, this is a fantastic thing, get involved, because people are going to hit the page and they're going to bounce straight off. It's really important you get those early pledges on first and then start talking to the press about this. And the story is, we are funding this, not we want to fund this. They can see it actually happening and it's in motion. Quite often a buying of a local pub will be covered by the local papers, quite often by the radio and occasionally by the TV. It's well worth making those contacts early and let them know you're doing it, find out who the right people are and get them excited about it. And then you're hoping that there's a wider crowd element. With a lot of projects where there's some interest outside of the community, that could be somebody who has some attachment to the community. We have seen it with projects where we've had people say, actually, my family are from that. I'm living in the States at the moment. My family are from that town and I want a part of this, and they've invested. We've also seen it where people have moved away from the town and want to kind of show their support for it. And we also do occasionally see people who are just generally interested in communities buying their own pub who are able to invest in this, especially if you've really thought about the commercial side and what interest you're going to be able to pay back to your members. So this is an exercise well worth doing by yourself, just mapping this out and seeing what kind of things you have in place at the moment, what the types of people that could invest in this. And it starts getting you thinking about what is the legwork we need to do here in terms of contacting these people before launch. Give you an example of some of the activity that may go on in a project. So this is what the Northumberland Arms were doing kind of on their Twitter back in 2017 when they did this. You know, this is a typical kind of post that we'll see on a crowdfunding project. Just 1 week to go to invest in us and become a shareholder in the Northumberland Arms Community Pub. We're so close, we can almost taste that pint and smell the cake. If you haven't already, head to our crowdfunder page and make your investment. It's time to tell your friends, neighbors, and dogs again that we can do this. I love that post. It's absolutely beautiful, and it kind of encapsulates everything that a community-owned business should be telling their local community. It's about that momentum. It's about getting people involved. It's about doing it again and again and again until everyone's absolutely sick to death of you. That's what I would say. And in terms of Facebook, this is a typical post that they did on Facebook. Incredible. Check out our crowdfunding page. We've gone from £8,000 to £42,000 within 12 hours. Have you put your pledge in yet? People can comment on it. You can start that dialogue with people. People can share it. You see 10 people have shared that post. It's got 15 likes on it, 2 comments. They've just taken a screenshot of the page, just a screenshot from the mobile view. They've taken up the page and then stuck that up. Really simple way of kind of explaining to more people what's involved in this. One thing I would say is that these the Facebook page and the Twitter page have now become the pages for the pub trading. So if you look at the Northumberland Arms Facebook page now, it's all about the amazing food that they've got going on there, which looks fantastic. So actually, part of the joy of the crowdfunding was they're able to build their social media presence really fast and really quickly through this activity that then actually stands the business in good stead moving forward. Hopefully through that you can see some of the examples that people have done on Twitter, some examples done on Facebook. Have a play with it, have a test with it, don't be afraid of it. Just get there and start pushing stuff out. And if people like it, then you'll see, and if they don't, then you won't. And they can comment it and you start that conversation going. It's a crucial part of the crowdfunding process. I have a marketing checklist, marketing plan template that you're all able to use. I can send it over to you. I've got a community share specific one that we've developed, and it will take you through that kind of step-by-step approach of all the things we think you might want to look at when launching your own community share issue. And give you an example of some of the things. I've just pulled out some of the things that are on there that you can you'll see when you do it. The first one is kind of building a team. I think that lends itself really nicely to your projects. Quite often in your emails to me, you've said, there's 5 of us, there's 6 of us. That fills me full of confidence because you've got, named people that are on the team and having clear roles in what you're doing. Like I said, some of the clear roles for the crowdfunding is it's nice to have someone who's quite technical savvy, who's quite social media savvy. That's really nice to have on the team. It's nice to have someone with some video skills, either on the team or on kind of the wider team. And it's nice to have someone who is a general marketeer or knows absolutely everybody in the community. Those kind of natural networkers who know absolutely everybody in the community, are able to have that conversation with them and spread the word that way, are some of the real kind of key elements to have in the project. What I will say as well is you can start your project, you can preview it at any time, you can share that preview page with people. So that allows you to allow other people to input it into it. What I like to do with any project I create is get it to kind of 80% ready, and then share it with other people, get that feedback and then finesse it from there. You will always miss something, you will always kind of be a bit ambiguous on something. It's nice to get that second pair of eyes on it. You can also send it to me and the team at Crowdfunder. We'll happily look at projects before they go live and feedback on them. Warm up, is really important aspect. Some of the things I've seen people doing lately will include things like take a photograph of you actually filming the video, and then you put that photograph out on social media and say, look, we've had a really excited day filming a video for our new upcoming crowdfunding project. It starts to layer into people's heads that there will be a crowdfunding project happening. So it won't be so much of a surprise when it actually comes to it. And you want to get as many people kind of signing up early as possible. So that really helps. So those either warm up in an email, set the date. A lot of projects tend to slip sometimes. It's like, we want to launch this on the 1st of May, it becomes the 1st of June, 1st of July, before you know you're in November. It's really nice to be able to actually set the date and go, we are going live on the 15th of September. That is our launch day, and we're going to break our backs to make sure we get to that launch date. And it lets everyone know that that's going to happen then. Like I said, have some large donations set up, have some large investments set up before launch. That really helps you kind of get off zero as quickly as possible and let people know that this is the real thing. Definitely, for a community pub, have a launch event. Launch events allow you to actually stand up there in front of people and say, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do, we are doing this, come on board with us. And it allows them, importantly, to ask questions. Those questions and those feedbacks are so vital. So of all the pubs that we've crowdfunded, I've spoken to most of them. I'd say pretty much most of them have done some kind of launch event. If they can't do it in the venue, which is often a problem, I've had one I spoke to the other week who's done it in the town hall over the road from the pub. I've had ones where they've done it in somebody's house because actually there is no meeting space left. And actually by doing it in someone's house, you really make that quite clear that there is no meeting space left in this town or village, and therefore we need to create one. But yeah, having that launch event really helps. If you can walk into that launch event and you're already on 10 or 20% funded, you can put laptops around the corners of the rooms, people can pledge from their mobile phones and try and get everybody to do at least a pledge before they walk out of the room. That'd be lovely. Give everyone something to share on Facebook and ask them directly to share. So quite often people are like, well, I have invested, what else can I do? Give them something tangible to share. So it could be an image you've created about what you're going to be doing at the pub, or it could be a video that you've created, and definitely ask them to share it and ask them to push it out. Line up partners to share on specific dates and chase them. So when I spoke about that kind of third quadrant of that circle, about partners pushing this out, so if you get the local women's institute, say they're going to send this out to their members, lock them down to a date and go, actually, well, we're going live on the 15th of September. Could you share this on the 23rd of September? That'd be really nice to me. And chase them up on it. You know, quite often these people, again, like your backers, will need a certain amount of chasing in order to do this on the right dates and push it out. Having that activity, you know, ideally you've got 28 days to raise this money. You want a good activity happening every single day of those 28 days. You can plan that in advance about what you're going to be doing. It won't always go to plan. You'll get days where you're like, that's not going to happen today. But at least it means you wake up in the morning and you go, I've got the thing we're doing today. You're not grappling around for this magical thing that's going to get you funded. You've got a plan and you can stick to it. You can change it if you want, but you've got something there to depend upon. Having that action for each day makes a real difference. And keep updating backers. You'll see on those successful projects 20, 30 updates throughout the project. You know, I'd say probably 10 to 15 of those were during the life of the project. Great news, ITV have just come down and done a film of us. You can watch it tonight on the local news. You know, those kind of updates out really kind of help galvanize what's going on. So that's an update through the project page itself, so that people can see that when they come in, that you have already done 5 updates, and this is a living, breathing thing that people can get involved with. And this is my last slide, but it is for me the most crucial slide, and I've mentioned this a couple of times already, but I think it's the one that I really want to leave with you and impress on you most, which is when you're looking to promote your project and looking to get people on board, start from the middle and work your way outwards. Start from the group that's closest to you, the group of people that are closest to this project, which will be you 5 or 6 that are putting this together, the immediate people that know about this. You should be the first people to put money into this project. Don't be ashamed of doing that. Don't be, you know, bashful about putting your name on it. You should be the first people in. It shows your support for it. Find the next tier then of people who are most likely to put their money in. And before you kind of start broadcasting it on social media and before you start going to the press and whatever else, get to 20, 30, 40, 50% funded, because those people are much less likely to back it if it's on 0. Because, you know, why should they? If you guys aren't willing to get involved in it, then why should other people get involved with it? So I think that's one of the things I'd leave you with is start from the middle and work your way outwards. And with that, I'm going to switch back to video, and we've had a few questions come in. Let me just come off here a second. A few questions come in, and hopefully we can answer some of those. So I've got a question from Laura, which is, we've had donations made already. Is there any way we can show that on the campaign at launch, or we need to manually enter it? So if you've had, if you've had any kind of money given in already, and we've got a starting point, and we can see clear evidence of that, then we can start the project at that point to show what's on the board already. That's not a problem. And there's a few other questions here as well. So one of the questions I had in from Jenny was, can we add rewards onto a project? So Yeah, you can. So you've got your various investment levels, which I showed you there as well. But actually, you can also either included within those, you can have invest £300, and you also get to hire the space for free once a year, or just as a one-off. You can definitely do that. The other thing you'll see projects do quite a lot is the minimum investment is £300. But if you wish to just donate £100 or £200 to us as an organisation, then you can do that. But that is a donation, not an investment. That does allow people to get involved maybe at a lower level, and start to get them involved in a different way than just a straight investment. So one of the things is, one of the other questions I had is, can we raise funds to buy the pub and to renovate it? And is that one project or two projects? I think that depends on the size of money you're going for. It's quite nice. Most of the ones I've seen actually do combine the two and say we're going to buy it and renovate it and open it, because that is the complete project, which will get it trading. But we have seen some community share projects come back to us for further raises later, for further developments. So I think one of the things to think about in your business plan is chunking it down to the smallest possible thing that gets you open and gets you going. If you raise more, then great, you can do more, but you could always do another fundraise later on in the day. One of the things Laura said to me is, what is the key messages to get out there? I think we've covered quite a lot of that during the talk, but it is around kind of, you know, the value of this to the community. Why should people get involved with this? What is it we're actually going to do? Who is involved with this? Again, you'll see that missing from a lot of projects, but I think that's really important. Get your faces on it, because we are the team that are going to make this happen, and therefore you should invest in us. People invest in people. It's a well-known fact, and so I think you want to get that across as much as possible. And one of the questions I had in from Ian was again about that rewards and investment. How easy is it to raise funds if we only do a rewards project versus doing a community share issue? The one thing I'll say in that is I think people emotionally will want to get involved in your project, and that's probably the decision factor to say, I am going to get involved. The average pledge on a rewards project is about £47.50. The average pledge on a community share project goes up to £300–400. So what will change from a rewards project versus community share project is people will give more money because it's an investment, not a donation or rewards project. So I think that's the key thing to think about, is you probably just chunk it down by a factor if you just go for a rewards project over doing the opportunity to do community share issue. So that is the bulk of the questions. I hope that's been useful for you all. If you have any other questions at all, feel free to email me, phil@crowdfunder.co.uk, if you want any of those documents or you have any questions, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Very thank you for Plunkett Foundation for working with Crowdfunder to put this together. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.